Hi there, welcome to Uncle B Studio where you learn how to act like a grandpa but code like a pro. In the last video, we built a more comprehensive model using all the transcript available from Warren Buffett's annual meetings. And today, we're going to try to create a backend API service using the Python models that we built and also add in the front end using Next.js. Let's get started.
First, let's take a look at what we're trying to build. We can now talk to Warren Buffett directly, ask him many questions. Our services will search through everything that was ever mentioned in Berkshire Hathaway's annual conference and find the topic that are most relevant, and then use OpenAI's completion API to generate the results. For example, if we want to ask let's first take a look at what we're trying to build in terms of overall architectures. We'll first need to deploy our application as a service, and we're going to do this on Heroku just because it's a very cost-effective way to do prototypings. And then we're going to expose a REST API service using Flask because the code is already done in Python. And then we're going to build a Next.js front end, deploy the front end on vercels, and then within the front end call the REST API service and give the result back to the end users. Step number one, deploy Python services. Before deploying any web services, we first need to decide which hosting provider to use. There's many available, including AWS, Google Cloud, Azure's. We're going to use Heroku for our purpose because it's very cost effective and perfect for prototyping, like I said before. And second, we're going to need a framework to build the web applications. In this case, we use Flask because our model already built in Python, and Flask is a lightweight framework to allow developer to create web application quickly. Let's take a look at what we need to add to our Python code. We first create a route called ask, and this is a HTTP post method. And within this functions, we can just call the ask WB questions, which we developed from earlier videos. Then, in order for our deployment to work, we define a proc file. This is a file that explicitly declares what command should be executed at the start of your app. And in this case, we want to run a GUnicorn on a Flask application called app in our app.py. So in the proc file, basically we're saying it's a GUnicorn start a app instance from the app.py. Next, we can set up a Heroku account. Once this account setup is completed, we should download the CLIs. CLI stands for Command Line Interface, and the Heroku provided a CLI for you to use. So once you're logged in, then you can use the Heroku CLIs. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do Heroku login. Yes, so this will actually prompt the browsers, and then you can log into your applications. And then now you can go back to your prompts, and then it will show you that the login is completed. Then we can create an app in Heroku. And we're going to call it a test app OpenAI's. And now the creation is completed. Then we can actually add a remote git to this git repo. I'm going to call this test app OpenAI. And then once the remote git is created, then we can push our code into the Heroku repos. So go Heroku, git push Heroku, and I'm going to push to the master branch. After a little bit of time, if the deployment is successful, you should see the message saying, verifying deployment done. Right now, you can actually open the deploy services. And voila, you can see the deployed Flask services on Heroku. Okay, now how do we test the deploy service? Well, there's many ways to do this. One is create a curl command with the appropriate headers and contents. or we can create a Python function that calls the deploy service. So for example, this is what we're doing here. We pass in the URI, which is the deployed web service, and then you pass in the headers and also the content, which in this case is a question to Warren Buffett, and receive the results. Okay, let's give it a try. We're going to uncomment the deploy version of the web service, and then we're going to call this web service. And now we got a response, and the response is answer which is the output of the model. Okay, step number 2, we want to create a front-end application in Next.js and deploy it on vercels. In order for us to do that, essentially what we want to do is we want to create a front end that calls our backend service, which is we just deployed. And the easiest way to do that is to borrow an open source project. So for this purpose, we're gonna borrow an open source project called Chatbot UI Lite. This is done in Next.js and TypeScript. We're gonna make appropriate changes accordingly. So once we clone the project, we can bring it up. I think I called it OpenAI UIs, and for this for JavaScript application, I like to use IntelliJ for IDEs, but you can essentially use any IDEs you want. The main thing we need to change is the handle send function in the index. Essentially, previously this was calling the OpenAI API directly, whereas right now we want to reroute it to the Python services we've deployed. Next, we're going to try to deploy it in vercel. This is very similar to Heroku. First, we need to sign up for an account on vercels. And second, we need to install the vercel CLI so we can actually type in the commands using the CLI. We can test the Next.js app locally by issuing command vercel def. And now we can access the URL that are hosted on localhost. Now you can see that the Next.js application is running properly locally. Then we can finally deploy the Next.js applications to vercels by issuing vercel deploy command. And now you can talk to Mr. Warren Buffett anywhere in the world. Guys, have fun chatting with Mr. Buffett. There are several improvements we'll make for the next parts of the video series. Number 1 is that we should add reference to Warren Buffett's answer, because the answer itself can be dated or based on a specific industry, therefore providing a reference to when and where makes sense for the topics. Second is the reference text sometimes is too long or too big for OpenAI to support, simply because the number of tokens are too big. We need to figure out where to break it down and still be able to use the model. Third is that right now the model answers single question using completion APIs. If we want to carry out a conversation, then we actually need to use the chat completion APIs, which we'll discuss in later videos. Fourth, right now this is using GPT-3 models. We want to upgrade to 3.5 Turbo and 4 models. We'll compare the performances once we do the upgrade. Last but not least, ChatGPT plugin is going to be a game changer. We're really excited about that features. We'll try to deploy our Warren Buffett models as a ChatGPT plugin. That's it, guys. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe. We'll see you next time.